The sun will rise every morning because you're faithful, faithful. Your mercies are new every morning because you're faithful, faithful. Every morning I will rise up and worship you. Every morning my praise to you, all faithful and true. Your majesty proceeds from its dawning. You are faithful every morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
So I'm sure you've noticed that we didn't have our opening slide today. We had a little bit of some technical difficulties. The gremlins didn't like the coffee we brought them, so they decided to go run amok here. But Super Sally saved the day.
Once again, Sally said,
I don't feel like I'm saving the day. I gotta tell you, I don't really feel like Superman
Sally
right now.
Saved the day.
Super Sally.
So you won't see a closing slide at the end, but if you want to get more information about our show, if you're tuning in for the first time, you can just go to www.anewday.nyc, and then you can check us out. I'm Joaquin, by the way.
And I'm Sharon,
Yes.
if you didn't know already. If it's your first time tuning in.
And you heard Sally, who is our
Yes.
super engineer.
Hi everyone.
Yes,
Good morning.
Sally.
So, sweetheart, today is Leap Day or Leap
Yes.
Year or whatever it is.
Yes.
So we have some exciting, you said you have some exciting stuff.
Well, our show is a new day, but actually we were saying it's an extra day today. We've got an extra day. And actually, I guess in that spirit, we're kind of winging it a little today because some of our slides aren't working.
Yep.
We're still going to have a show, which is a great thing. But we're kind of winging it a little bit. So if there's some hiccups here. please
Yes.
be
So
patient.
if we happen to have a video interruption, don't sign off. I'm sure Super Sally will fix it. We'll be back.
No pressure.
back on the air again.
I feel like I ran like a marathon this morning.
I know, right? So, but we keep getting better. We'll figure it out. So, sweetheart, you had some interesting information about February
March.
29th. Sorry, I'm in March already. Sorry.
February 29th. Yes, today is Leap Day, and it wouldn't be a new day without my corny, stupid jokes. So I got to start out with a couple one-liners. Actually, I saw a great visual. We don't have it on the screen today, but it was so funny. And it said, "Happy Leap Day, an extra day to deal with stupid people." You ever feel like that? Like you're just dealing with stupid people all the time?
Yes, absolutely.
So you got an extra day to deal with that. But anyway, I got a couple of little one-liners, and I got a joke.
Oh, can I just say one sad thing that Sharon actually brought to my attention? If you're a salaried employee, you're actually working one free day this year and you're not getting paid for it.
Yes, that's an extra day that you're working and not getting paid, technically.
Yeah, I didn't like that since
Since you're
I'm salaried. Okay, sweetheart, go ahead.
Anyway, on a happier note. Okay, I got 3 one-liners. Hey, don't look at my answers.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry.
Okay. We'll start. Sally, where do most people eat on Leap Day?
Is this like a joke
It's
or
a one-liner joke.
trivia?
No, it's not
okay,
trivia.
Right.
Where do most people eat on Leap Day?
I don't know.
IHOP. Ba-bum.
Ah, nice. Nice.
IHOP. Okay, this one's for you. I got another
Okay,
funny
all
one.
right, go ahead.
What kind of music do you listen to on Leap Day?
What kind of music you listen
What
to
kind
on
of
Leap
music?
Day?
Hip hop.
Hey!
Yeah. You stinker.
Smarty pants.
That's only because you said IHOP, so she made the connection. Yeah. Okay.
And my last corny one-liner. This is for all you attorneys and lawyers out there. What does a lawyer do on Leap Day? He's stumped. We stumped Sally, finally.
Wow. I don't know.
He jumps to conclusions. Corny.
Okay.
Okay, and I got one funny joke. Actually, it's a church joke since we are a Christian show. So it's
Yes.
only fitting that we have a church joke. And this comes straight from Uncle Frank in
Hey,
Virginia.
Uncle
Thank
Frank.
you, Uncle Frank in Virginia.
And Aunt Isabel and Frankie and
And
Kim,
all you- yes.
all our wonderful family in Virginia.
Uncle Frank shared this joke this week, and I thought it was cute. For all you church folk out there, he talked about a pastor told his congregation that next week I'm going to preach about the sin of lying. So to help you understand my sermon, I want all of you to go home and read Mark chapter 17. So the following Sunday, when he was ready to preach his sermon, he started to preach, and the pastor asked for a show of hands. He wanted to know how many people had read Mark chapter 17. And immediately every hand went up. And so the pastor smiled and said, okay, now I'm ready to start preaching because Mark only has 16 chapters. So I can begin my sermon on lying. So that's a lesson. Don't lie to your pastor. Anyway, thanks
Uncle
Frank.
That was
cute.
really cool. When I read that, I laughed. That was really nice.
That was cute. That's a nice Baptist joke right there.
It is. So you got some interesting stuff about.
Yes,
Oh,
now
I'm excited. So,
we have,
Sally, you ready to go?
we have a duel here. We're continuing
boy.
our duel, our face-off between Super Sally and Joaquin. If you saw our last episode for Valentine's Day, we had a Valentine's trivia quiz. So in that spirit, today is Leap Day. So we have our Leapin' Lizards Leap Day quiz. Say that 5 times fast. I don't know.
Leaping Lizards.
Leaping Lizards Leap Day quiz.
Leap Day quiz. Okay.
So last time, these two had we had
tie.
a tie. We ended in a tie. So let's see what
But
happens.
ladies always win when there's a tie. So.
Yay.
Yay.
Which actually was a good thing.
Yeah, it worked
it
out.
worked out well, right? She took the balloons, and that worked
She
out
took the
very
balloon-
well.
It worked out
Those
well.
balloons went a long way.
Yes. Yes.
Sally, did you get on camera? Did you wave to our people?
Oh.
Did you see?
Hey.
Yay, Sally. Okay, so
Okay.
we don't have
We don't
the
have slides
visuals.
today.
We don't have slides, so I'm just going to have to read this.
Okay, so I won't look.
Don't look. I'll put it this way. And you're kind of stuck seeing Joaquin and I instead of a visual. So, okay, I got 12 questions. So for all you smarty pants out there that think you know about Leap Day, you can play along with us and see how far you get.
Yeah,
Okay.
write in and we'll read your answers afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. Do that. Okay, first question. We'll start off easy.
Oh boy.
She says that.
Yeah, but she doesn't mean that.
No, I
She
do.
doesn't
I'm
mean
really.
that. Okay, go ahead.
It will get more difficult as we go along.
All right.
Okay. How? This is multiple choice.
Oh, I like
okay?
I
So
love
that's-
multiple choice.
Multiple choice. That sounds
Now
good.
my interest is piqued.
Okay, multiple choice.
Okay, first question. How often do leap years occur? A, every 8 years, B, every 6 years, or C, every 4 years?
Every 4 years.
Yay, Sally. What happened? You didn't
I
say
thought we
nothing.
were alternating. I'm sorry. No, I didn't think
Oh,
this was
okay.
like, let's jump in and have a brawl.
I was
okay.
just going to blurt it out as fast as I could if I know anything.
Actually, who's keeping score? Is someone mentally? I don't have a
you got a
pen.
pen?
Here. Who's keeping score? We'll mentally do it. Sally, you keep
Okay.
score. Okay. All right.
Oh, well, you know what? Hold on a second. Yeah, go ahead. Keep
got it?
going.
Okay.
I'll keep score.
So is that how we're doing? We're alternating questions? You want to do it that
No,
way?
I mean, you want
No, okay, go ahead.
You, want to
You take the next one. I feel really happy that I got one.
No, you want to just, I don't know.
It's up to you and Sally. You two
How
are
you
facing
want to do
off.
this?
So.
How you want-
Well, if it's multiple choice, we could both give our answers, and then whoever gets
and
it
then
right.
you tell us who's right. That sounds good.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Sounds good.
See?
Okay.
Super Sally.
How many days are there in a leap year? A, 365, B, 366, or C, 367?
366.
Sally? Yep. Okay, you both got that. Okay. Third one. A year which is not a leap year is called A, a common year, B, an ordinary year, or C, a non-leap year. A year that is not a leap year. Common year, ordinary year, or non-leap year.
Ladies first.
I'd probably say common.
I would say common.
Yay! Look at
All
these
right.
guys. They're so smart. Geez, showing off.
She's
We're
still
racking
winning.
up
She's
the
3
points.
to 2. It's,
That's right. She's 3 to 2. She's still
3 to
winning.
2.
Okay. Beginning at the very beginning,
Okay.
who invented leap year? Was it Plato, Julius Caesar, Napoleon, or Shakespeare? Plato, Julius Caesar, Napoleon, or Shakespeare?
Or somebody who was drunk.
I'm going with Plato.
Plato, you say?
Julius Caesar.
Julius Caesar.
Yay! Now
Now
we're
we're
tied.
tied.
Yay! Okay.
You're holding up your
Boy,
hand
that
for
was
the
a
men.
guess.
I
Yes, 'cause
thought
I didn't know
Julius
that.
Caesar was like a warrior. No, I don't know.
Yeah,
I went.
sorry.
I went
I-
with the
Well, it
philosopher.
depends because I would have
Philosopher.
thought Augustus, but anyway.
No,
Go
it
ahead.
was Julius Caesar.
All right.
Okay, now we're starting to get a little difficult.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Why do we need to have leap years?
Hmm.
Is it because the sun is getting gradually smaller? Or because it takes the Earth longer than a year to orbit the sun?
Okay.
Or because the Earth's rotation is slowing down?
Is it my turn?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you would go for it.
B.
B, yes, because it takes the Earth longer than 1 year to rotate.
Hey, I didn't get a
around
chance
the
to
sun.
say my thing, so you
Oh,
can say who
so we
was.
don't.
That's what I was gonna say.
All right, well, we'll give you both
Well,
credit.
it's not like she could play poker. You have to see her face every time one of us gets anything right. She's like, "Yay!" Like she'd be like the best kindergarten
So you're
teacher on
telling
the
me
face
she
of
can
the
never
earth.
go to Vegas and
Yeah,
play poker.
Don't
okay.
just
Have a
just
poker.
stick with sweet children and stay away from Vegas.
All right. So we're still tied because I was gonna say that too. So.
All right,
Anyway.
sorry.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay,
Here,
Now-
I'll just do this whenever
all
you
right. I have to cover my answer. Who were the first people to come up with the idea to create leap year? Was it the Greeks, the Romans, or the Egyptians?
Romans.
I'm gonna go with that too.
Yay, you both got it.
All right.
The Romans. The Egyptians were actually the first to discover that the Earth takes longer than a year to rotate around the sun, but it was the Romans who introduced the Julian calendar to correct it. So it's the Romans.
Okie doke.
Okay, you're halfway through, guys.
All right.
I don't know how you're doing at home. I don't know how well you're doing with this. You're probably doing pretty good. Okay, next one. What is the origin of the expression leap year? The expression leap year. Was it people traditionally used to leap for joy on February 29th? Or it comes from the proverb, look before you leap? Or last one, the day of the week in a leap year advances 2 days from the previous year.
I want to say C.
See?
Yeah, me too.
See, yep, you both got it.
All right.
Wow,
Still
these
tied.
guys are doing great. Okay,
I
this
love
is-
multiple choice. I could take a test on anything.
Okay, this is a little more difficult.
Okay.
What are the mathematical odds of having a leap day birthday? Is it 1 in 366, 1 in 1,461, or 1 in 5,844?
B.
Yeah.
Wow, what's with you two?
I don't know.
Jeez, you
I
guys
like
are
math
too
and science, so you're doing it.
They're getting all of them correct. Gee, I thought you would get stumped on some of them.
Well, because you gave us multiple choice. That's why.
Okay, next one. How many living people worldwide share birthdays on February 29th? Is it 400,000, 4 million, or 40 million? Living people worldwide.
Say that again. What are the choices?
400,000,
Okay.
4 million,
Okay.
or 40 million?
I want to say A.
400,000?
I'm gonna go with B.
Sally Smarty Pants.
Smarty pants.
4 million people worldwide share that birthday. That's actually pretty high. I didn't think it would be that many, but it is. Okay, this is a true or false question. You probably
Okay.
like this too. There is a presidential election every leap year. True or false?
True.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, she
Yeah,
got
that's-
hesitate.
I know. I had to think about it. I'm
Hesitate.
like, they start,
she's
elections
like,
so like early. I'm like, yeah, yep. That's
true.
that's interesting.
So, okay.
True.
So
Every
she's still
leap
got
year.
one above
She's
me.
still one above.
All right.
Okay, here's another true or false.
Okay.
The Olympic Games always take place on leap years. True or false?
Which Olympic Games?
Oh, that's kind of like giving it away.
okay.
I
True.
don't-
I'm gonna go
mess
with
with
true, just because
True.
they're all worried about it right now.
Yep, true. It's the Summer Olympic Games.
Okay, because there is a Winter Olympics too.
Yes. No, always
Okay.
held on
Okay.
leap years. And for everyone, your final question. Yay. See how well you did. According to Irish tradition, so Sally has a leg up on this one. According to Irish tradition, what one thing can a woman do on February 29th? Is it A, propose to a man. B, ask for a divorce. C, no cooking or housework. Or D, ask a man for a date. According to tradition.
I'm going to go for
You're Latino. You
A,
don't know
propose.
these things, honey. What'd you say?
A, propose.
Yes, that's right. A, propose.
Yeah,
See?
that I didn't even need a multiple choice for. I knew that.
You knew that,
Yeah.
right? That's a big time
That
tradition.
is okay.
The tradition is supposed. Do you know where it
Right over my head.
originates from, Sally?
Mm-mm.
Okay, it originated from a deal that Saint Bridget struck with Saint Patrick. If the man refuses her proposal, he's obligated to give the woman money to buy her a dress.
Wow. Okay.
So that's that,
All right.
which is similar to Sadie Hawkins. Any of you who
Yeah,
are
that's what I was thinking because that's a
Sadie Haw-
date.
Yes.
So that's why I was going back and forth between a date and a proposal, but then I was thinking it has to be the proposal because of that.
right, that's where the Sadie Hawkins Day dance came from. My father knows about this. That's going way back. My father knows. It actually originated from the comic strip Little Abner. You ever hear of Little
Yep.
Abner comic strip? And in this famous cartoon, Sadie and every other woman in town were allowed on that day to pursue and catch eligible bachelors. And she was the homeliest gal in the hills. So that's why she was allowed to do that. Anyway, that's our Leap Day
Super
trivia quiz.
Sally Smarty Pants.
She won again. What, by one?
Just by
By
one.
two.
Oh, no, by two. That's right. You didn't
won by
know about
two.
the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's out of control.
She's
okay.
out of control.
So what's next?
So we hope you guys did well. Moving on now to what we're really excited about is the show today, where we're continuing our Spotlight series on Chip and Joanna Gaines. If you watched us 2 weeks ago, you saw that we just kind of scratched the surface on this couple. And this is a great couple. I mean, the more I find out about them, the more they're just, we were talking about it, they're just a fabulous couple. Like, they're just someone you'd want to be friends with and just hang out with. They're fun, they're inspirational. And so we're going to continue a little bit more. They're going to talk about family and faith, a little bit behind the scenes. For those of you who don't know who Chip and Joanna Gaines are, if you've been living behind a rock somewhere, they are HGTV, a celebrity couple that they renovate homes. And their last show, they did 5 seasons, and their last show, I think, was in 2018. They took 2 years off to have a 5th child on
Wow.
top of everything they do and to spend more time with their kids. But now I'm excited because it's slated for this October 2020. They are going to be launching their own Magnolia network. They're going to be in partnership with Discovery Channel, and they're going to have their own network, which is going to feature a broad range of TV shows, everything from gardening to cooking to nutrition, and family, faith, wellness. So it's going to be a broad range of shows.
Wow.
So
That's
they're
great.
really a great couple, but there's so much more to this couple than renovating homes and celebrity and fame. And that's what we're going to focus in on today. Sally's setting up a video for you where they sat down with their pastor, and he asked them some really interesting questions about how God became real to them more than a religion. God became, they entered into a relationship with God, and they talk a little bit about family, and you'll laugh along with them, and you'll be inspired at the same time. So, Sally, you can take it away if you're ready.
Okay.
While she's setting that up, by the way, I got a hold of, it was in the supermarket. It just happened to be on the aisle I was at, and I happened to see this, and it's their latest issue of the Magnolia Journal. And what a fabulous, if you can get your hands on it, you'll love it. The whole theme of the
If you
Magnolia
guys
Journal.
have been around long, we have a
I'll tell you
banner
later.
statement over everything we do. We want to be a people who have a passion for Jesus and his purposes in the earth. It kind of goes like this, is that we want to make sure that every time we gather that we love Jesus more than the time we gathered before. And if you're here with us for the first time or you're with us for the next 10 years, that as a part of this journey, you'll fall more in love with Jesus. The second part of that statement is passion, and then it's purpose. And each person is called by God. Each person is gifted by God. Each person has a contribution to make in this earth. And as we love God with all of our hearts, we begin to find out that purpose and that plan. And we believe that every person is valuable. And all over our city, we have incredible people. We have teachers and educators that are laying their lives down on a daily basis to love and care for our kids in the community. Hey, it's okay. Let's give it up for the teachers. We have healthcare workers with compassion who care for the sick. We have business leaders that contribute to our city in so many different ways. We have social workers. We have moms and dads really in our midst. And on a weekly basis, we try to share testimonies of things that God is doing so that Christianity is not something out here, but it's something real. It's something we live out in our lives. And every once in a while, God highlights somebody in our midst in an unusual way, in a unique way that they and we could only say, wow, God, you're doing something bigger than any of us could have imagined. And that has happened in these past few years with our dear friends Chip and Joana Gaines. And they have been with us for years from the beginning of this church. And we have been praying for them, celebrating with them all that God's doing and done in their lives. And we wanted to take a little time this morning and hear the story behind the story. We want to hear the God story behind everything that He's doing in and through their lives. And so here they are. They're with us, Chip and Joana Gaines. Come on, guys, come talk to us. Love you. Love you, love you. All right, well, here we are, guys. Here we are. Now, I don't know if you guys knew this, but Joana was famous before she even met Chip. She was the voice of Jerry Stevens Firestone, which is her dad and mom actually together owned and operated the Firestone dealership, and she was the voice, would do commercials and different things like that. There's a little jingle that can you sing that little jingle? What's the little jingle?
Jerry Stevens Firestone, home of the satisfied customers.
Hey, you still got it. And it passed on in the family, yes.
Jerry makes us sing that before we break bread together as a family. It's really, really embarrassing. Literally, all 4 of my children can sing that
Isn't
song
that amazing?
Word for word.
It's that generational blessing that just happens in life. But also, Joana was famous even in high school. She was on the homecoming court of her high school, and she needed even kind of a famous person to escort her when she came out for that incredible day in the school gym. And so I think we've got a clip from that here this morning of Joana senior in high school, escorted by none other than James Mark Gully. Let's take a look. That is such a... He looks like Carl.
Jerry and Ann Stevens, she's Mary Kay's older sister, and a second-year warrior. During her first 2 high school years, Joana
Wow,
was
she
very
still
involved
got
in
it.
basketball,
Yes.
volleyball, gymnastics.
There it is. Well, we knew it'd never work out because Joana was just a little taller than James Mark, but glad
I've
that
always
it
had
did.
this deep-seated insecurity about James Mark Gully, and I always thought it was because he was so excellent with the guitar. You know, I always thought, why did I spend all those years, wasted on some athletic field somewhere when I could have been picking up the guitar like James Mark?
There you go.
But I see where that insecurity actually stems
jealousy.
from. It's jealousy. More of a jealousy than...
That's awesome. Well, hey, we have a unique opportunity this morning to kind of go a little deeper. The story behind the story, and I know that for you guys, the story behind the story is Jesus, His faithfulness to you and the work of God that He's done in your life. And so let's unpack that a little bit. So Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you came to know Jesus and when did Jesus become real to you personally?
So I grew up in an amazing home where my parents just taught me about the love of God, and we did the thing. We went to church, we memorized scripture, but for me, really when I was thinking about it, it's funny because I really cared about my parents' approval. To me, they were the stop.
Yep.
God was God. He was up here, and He was kind, and He was loving. But at the end of the day, I really wanted it. I wanted my parents to be happy with my choices. So that was really what kind of, in a weird way, that was almost my guide.
Yep.
And then, I go through high school, never have this connection with God. Again, it felt more like a religion to some extent. And then in college, I went off to New York City, And I remember before I even went, just the idea of me going, I was pretty sheltered, played it safe, didn't, you know, I even wanted to like live with my parents. I always told them, I'm never going to move out. I was one of those kids.
I like that
yes,
as a parent.
I know. I wish my kids would.
That's interesting how you thought and dreamt about living with your parents and how that actually came to fruition.
It kind of did.
They're still
So
around.
when I said, you know, Mom and Dad, I want to move to New York City, I thought right off the bat they'd say, no way. How could we send our child who's never, you know, lived on our own to this big city? And right off the bat they said, you know what, we feel like this is good. Go for it. And so I remember the second I get there, I all of a sudden just feel this weight, like I am alone. Yeah. For the first time, my parents, my community, my sisters were all here in Waco, and I'm in this big city, and I felt just the weight of that loneliness. And I just remember the idea that I had this big gaping hole in my heart. What's going to fill that loneliness? And I always say it was the grace of God covering me with prayer, that I didn't choose the other things that were all laid out before me, but my parents were covering me in prayer. I know they were. And so in that time of loneliness, I met God. I met him in such a real way where I learned how to walk and talk with him. I learned not only as my father, he's my friend. And I think in that 5 or 6 months is where this just connection just hit me, that this is all I need. And when I left, when I left Waco, moved to New York, I remember the thought was, you know, I can't do anything without my family and friends. They're my people. And then by the time it was time to go, I remember just having this just this foundation in my heart that apart from God, I can do nothing. That with him, if I have nothing else, I can conquer the world. So I just feel like the shift happened, and that was just the richest time for me, just learning about this relationship with God that I felt like I had missed along the way.
Awesome. Beautiful.
Amen.
Beautiful. How about you, Chip?
Okay, so yeah, I hate following Joe in this because she's got an excellent testimony and mine's not quite as excellent. But all that being equal, we were very similar. Our upbringings were very, we were cut out of the same cloth in a lot of the ways that she was describing. I remember really vividly as a young man, really appreciating church in theory. But when I needed advice, I went to my dad. When I needed encouragement, I went to my mom, you know, and that carried me well into my adult life. I've always been a little bit, hard to believe if anybody knows me personally, but tad bit on the immature side. You know, as a young man that was well past needing his mommy and daddy's approval for every decision that he made on a daily basis, I was past the time that I should have needed that, but yet I still longed for those things that Joe was describing. You know, I wanted my dad to be proud of me, wanted my mom to encourage me, you know, some of those things. But anyway, I sat, I actually got a phone call from my mom, you know, well into my 20s, maybe late 20s, and she said, you know, history's is happening right in your backyard. You know, are you going to this deal at the Farrell Center? I was like, Mom, I have no idea what you're talking about. What's going on? And she said, well, these girls had gotten captured in Afghanistan, and they're going to be speaking. They've just been released. It's this big, unbelievable story. She was captivated by it all the way up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, obviously all over the world, really. But for me, that was a big deal. And I said, gosh, Mom, you know, this is a big deal. This is right in our backyard. Let's go check it out. And so I went to the Farrell Center that afternoon, and I sat literally in the very back row of that Farrell Center. There were literally dozens of rows between me and the next group. And I remember Heather and Dana as they kind of explained to me the relationship that sustained them through that really tough time in their life. And like an atomic bomb went off in my spirit, I just got completely wrecked for no real logical reason. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of baggage. My parents were great people. I have wonderful stories of elementary and high school and college. I mean, really, it was a charmed life, to say the least. And God dropped what was possible in the middle of all those good things, you know? And I remember very vividly remembering, I don't know what they're talking about. I don't have a relationship with Jesus the way that they're describing the relationship that they've got that sustained them during those traumatic months that had to have been, you know. And so I remember meeting a gentleman at the end of that press conference, really, yeah. And I just said, where are y'all from? who are y'all? How do I come to, because they kept saying, hey, we're going to be at church tomorrow. Y'all come and join us. And I was like, oh, I'm going there. I'm going to go hear more about this. And so I met this gentleman, and he told me how to get to Antioch. And of course, I had known a few bits and pieces about it as a college kid. But anyway, long story short, I remember equally far back in the back row at Antioch Community Church and how they were joking. And I thought this was really offensive. I took personal offense to this. But they were like, oh, we're so sorry. We couldn't really go into all the details yesterday. We had to keep it really superficial. We only got to like level 1 of what we really wanted to express about our relationship with God. And I remember sitting in the back seat, and I just like sank in my seat going, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm going to live. I don't think I can live through this. I almost died the day before on what Heather and Dana implied was their level 1 discussion about what God was like. And I said, wow, I was excited to take that journey. And we dug in. I mean, even as a young married couple, this was our home church, and you were our pastor, and y'all were our community. And because of that, we have, I learned from that experience, and of course, this 15-year journey, that God is who he says he is. He's who the Bible tells you he is, and he can change the world. He can move mountains. He can solve your problems sitting right where you sat. And I remember when I felt that for the first time, it was a real revolution for me.
Beautiful. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that was really, I think those of us who were, raised in a either a Christian home, or like I was raised in a Catholic home, I was the altar boy and the whole thing. God just seemed like very distant.
Mm-hmm.
Until it's very interesting how they each had both unique experiences that made him very, very real.
Right.
And I thought and that makes really all the difference, I think.
Right. I think what was interesting, how she talked about when she left her family and she went into a really strange environment in New York City, how God became personal to her. It was no longer a religion. She grew up in a Christian home, but God was always distant, somewhere out there.
Right.
And God was more of a concept to her instead of a reality. And we talk about that a lot in church,
definitely.
how we can sit in church and hear all the right things, but God still remains distant. He's out there, and he's more of a concept, a theory, than a reality, than a relationship. That's the key difference that we always try to emphasize, the difference between religion and relationship. And so that's what's so great about their story.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think that, it's very difficult to look at God as somebody who's warm and cuddly,
Yes,
right?
that's
Who
true.
wants to bounce you on his knee and who wants to love you. It's really hard to see him that way, unless you have experiences like they had, where there's, where something happens and you're like in her case, where he became very real because she became isolated, and
Right.
so she started to see God very differently. And in his case, he heard other people talk about God, like, wow, I don't know him that way. And so he was drawn in and really, taken for this incredible journey that made him very, very real. Mm-hmm. And I think that God is a God who pursues. He pursues us. He comes after us. And if you ever wondered, well, is it really true that God loves me that much? Is it really true that, like, it's, I want to believe it, but it's kind of hard to believe. We tell people in our church, just look at the cross. That's how much you're loved. He came and he took flesh to be like you, to feel everything you feel, to go through your heartaches and your heartbreaks, and be victorious over all the things that plague us on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. Die and come up from the grave with none of our sicknesses, diseases, sins and everything else, and then be seated at the right hand of God. And as he is, so are we in this world. So, God really does love us. But when he becomes real to you, I think that's the big game changer.
Right.
That's definitely the big game changer.
Exactly. That God becomes more than a religion. Sally's going to set up, we're going to continue. We're not going to cut because there's so much more goodies coming. But I think I so related to their story because I was raised in church. And I can remember a defining moment in my teens, actually when I was graduated high school. And I remember going to this little church. I actually went because actually my parents were bugging me to go. So I just kind of went. It's like, oh, I don't want to hear it anymore.
Right.
Let me go to this church that they had started attending. And I remember sitting there, and I knew, like what what Chip said, that he had that. He looked around and he knew that they had something he didn't.
Right.
And so I saw people that I knew they had a personal relationship. It was real to them with Jesus, and I knew that I didn't quite have that.
Right.
Despite all the good teaching, I wanted more. I wanted God to be real in my life. I wanted a personal encounter with Jesus. And so I remember just in that little tiny church and how my life, it was a defining moment for me, surrounded by these people, and how God brought me to the next level in my life and my spiritual walk, that he became real to me. And he became, as you always said, he's a good God, but he's a better father.
Absolutely.
He became a father.
Yeah.
And so I know Sally's setting up the rest. We want Chip and Joana to be the stars today, not so much us. So
Well,
whenever
you've
ready,
already
Sally.
mentioned the influence of your parents. I mean, they are kind of the backbone, were growing up and are today. And last week we did a message on honor your mother and father, which is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and you may live long on the earth. Obviously something you want your kids to follow as parents. But let's take a moment just honor your parents. Chip, I know that they're here in this service specifically. And tell us a little bit about what you appreciate about your parents, and then Joe, do the same.
Yeah, it's easy for me to honor mom and dad. I don't wish, but it's always powerful to hear the testimonies of the terrible relationships that have been, brought back together and restored through God's grace. But with
Last week we did a message on honor your mother and father, which is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and you may live long on the earth. Obviously something you want your kids to follow as parents. But let's take a moment just honor your parents. Chip, I know that they're here in this service specifically. And tell us a little bit about what you appreciate about your parents, and then Joe, do the same.
Yeah, it's easy for me to honor mom and dad. I don't wish, but it's always powerful to hear the testimonies of the terrible relationships that have been, brought back together and restored through God's grace. But with dad and mom, they were always right for me. They always did right by me. Mm-hmm. They always did right by my big sister. And unfortunately for them, to some extent, they didn't have the best role models on the planet to mentor them and how to do this thing called life and to parent my sister and I well. But my mom and dad learned somewhere early on in their marriage that they were gonna keep God and specifically Jesus as the center of their relationship. And even though they were not perfect, and even though there were lots of ups and downs like there are in anybody's life, I remember my sister and I would just be able to watch those two work out their differences and work out their issues. And even as their parents became more and more complicated as they got older and I became old enough to realize what all was going on, I just remember watching those two make decisions on a daily basis. It had to have been daily for them. For me, it's a lot easier because I had such a great runway. I had such a great foundation. But with mom and dad, on a daily basis, they had to say, this is either true or it's not. Wow. We're either going to choose to go with our flesh and go to war and end up like our parents, or we're going to choose to honor one another and bless our children. And I remember even as a young man just being able to really realize how committed they were to my sister and I, and obviously more importantly to their relationship with Christ. And it really set the foundation for me as a young man to love my wife well. I think a lot of the things that people appreciate about our show and our relationship is just our ability to really go for it. Mm-hmm. And I think that really stemmed from our parents and watching them work this thing out.
Beautiful. Hey, mom and dad, why don't you stand up? We want to honor you. So proud of you. That's beautiful. Right to honor.
Mom shot me a peace sign, so I'm not sure exactly what that meant. But
Be cool.
She's
be cool.
pretty. She's
Don't say
pretty
anything.
hip. She's pretty hip.
Very hip.
I think she saw Luke with his skinny jeans and his tight rolls and thought maybe that was something that needed to happen there
Yeah,
at that
absolutely.
moment.
Groovy.
You know,
Joe?
for me, hi. For me, growing up, when I look back on just my childhood, there's 3 things I really remember that I would love to try to carry out even in our own family. But one, my parents were involved in some Bible study where they were always doing these verses. And they had to learn piles of verses. They had note cards in their car. So anytime we would be in the car, all of us, my parents would do this thing where they would be quizzing each other. Nan, Isaiah 40:31. And so they'd go back and forth and play this game. And I always joke that me and my sisters were in the back fighting. Like, we didn't even really get what they were doing. We were like, oh, here they go. But now I don't remember. Am I 37 or 38? I keep saying, I think I'm 38 now.
no.
Anyways, now at 38 years old, there are times in my life where I am freaking out about something and things just seem to be all over the map, and I'll hear this verse just come to mind. His love will keep you in perfect peace, or keep you in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusts in you. And I remember thinking, I never took that thing of cards and memorized those myself, but their constant memorization and speaking the word actually stuck on me. And so to me, it just says that the word is living and active, and when you speak it, it will not return void. And so that's something that I just love, just how that came full circle. And then worship music. My dad would always get the best entertainment center, and we would play the worship music. And at the time, I remember it was Maranatha.
Which in our generation, just to be clear, was this big boom box that he would carry around on his shoulder. I mean, don't get too excited, youngsters.
So he would play the music, and I just remember there was always this feeling of peace when I walked into the house. Even if things were hard and stuff that we were going through was hard, there was always this level of peace when you walk into the house, that just that filter of worship music we would encounter. And then last but not least, my dad, he would pray for us every morning at 4 a.m. And not until I got older did I realize this was a consistent thing that he did. But I remember there'd be times where I'm like, nah, he's not up. And I'd creep out of my room and I'd look around the corner and I'd see my dad on his knees praying for us. And we never really spoke about it. I never said, thanks, Dad, for praying. I just knew that was his quiet place with God. And what security that brought for me, knowing I was being covered. And even in the rockiest times of his business, I remember thinking most people wouldn't get out of bed. They would be in this deep, dark depression. And even though he felt it, he'd still be up at 4 a.m. And on the flip side, my mom was a little prayer warrior, but she was fiery. My dad was quiet at 4 a.m. No one knew he was doing it. My mom was just yelling. And, if you have a prayer request, she's going to pray for you right then and there. But, we'd be going to school, and the entire ride to school, she'd be praying. And again, me and my sisters were like, Mom, I think that's enough. We didn't appreciate it then. But full circle now, my mom is, she's the one that covers our business and prayers. Every email we get, any tweet we get, when people are saying, pray for my wife, she has cancer, we're printing those out and giving them to my mom. And she's head of the prayer department. And what I love about it is all the properties that we're at, you'll see my mom driving around and her hand will be reached out. She's covering everything in Waco. But just love that it came full circle.
Yes.
Amen.
Yeah. Very good, Mom. So, Chip, you shared a little bit of story from Mom that one of the corporate people were in, and what did they
this was
ask
hilarious.
about
Yeah,
Mom?
we'll be in these meetings, and with really relevant corporate leaders to some extent from all over the world have come and come to Waco periodically over this experience that Joe and I have had, and we'll be sitting there at the office, and there Mama Stevens will roll through, and she'll have her hand out the window, and she'll be rocking and rolling, and nobody. I've gotten to where it's completely normal. I don't even think one way or the other, but somebody will take it one way or the other. Oh, I wonder what that lady's doing. Well, there was a rumor that had started, so she's gone. And again, it never crossed my mind that there was something interesting about what she was doing. And somebody was talking about the fact that Mama Stevens, this was quite the drama broke out at Magnolia Corporation, that she was smoking a cigarette as she was driving around. And, and the more I watched her after I heard that little rumor, which of course was false, but I watched her. I was like, oh gosh, I could see why they got that
And then
impression.
she's tipping the
They had no
ashes out
idea.
the
I mean,
window.
she's flicking her ashes outside the window. As far as they were concerned, they thought it was. So
That is
she
awesome.
now is very specific about the way, she lets everybody know she is
Yes.
not smoking a cigarette.
That is so great. That is.
That's awesome. That's
that was
funny.
cute. That's so cute.
So in this segment, one of the things that really was impactful to me is the fact that the consistency of the parents' commitment to one another in the Lord, right? So sometimes when you're young, the adage that says a picture's worth 1,000 words. I think when God is real to you as a parent, it'll become real to your
Right.
child, right? Because if you're one way at church, if they see one person at church and then that person is different at home, I think it creates a chasm that it's hard for a child to reconcile, well, what's the reality? And then God becomes, then it just becomes a religion and it's not real and I'm going to find my own way in life. But when they see you going through difficulties and challenges and obstacles, and you pray and you come together and God sees you through it, then we see with the two of them, all of that comes back. All of that comes back. And it's very powerful. A lot of people, it's a big challenge, I guess, to parent in Christ. It's almost like a lot of people leave it up to the church, but it's really your responsibility as a parent. If God is real to you, it'll be real to your children.
Right, absolutely. It reminds me of, we talked about this, I think, last night. Reminds me of a great statement I once heard. I can't take credit for it. And the person said, Christianity is not so much taught as it is caught. I'll say that again. Christianity is not so much taught as it is caught. And so you see that perfect example in Joanna's life where she talks about, and I like to say it's like a 3-stranded cord
Right.
was weaved into her life where her parents were constantly speaking God's word in her presence, declaring promises, declaring scriptures. And she wasn't memorizing them
Right.
herself, but they stuck to her.
Yes.
They stuck to her. And then she talks about the worship music going on all the time, creating an atmosphere in their home, an atmosphere of peace, an atmosphere of God's presence in their home. And then the third strand of that cord, she's talking about the prayer, the constant prayer of her father and mother, always on their knees. From a little girl, she remembered that. And she wasn't doing it, but it was around her. And so that's why I thought of that statement. Christianity is often caught
Right.
more than it's taught. And all that stuff was planted in her from a child, and it actually came to fruition in her college years. It came to light there. And so I thought that was so powerful. That was the 3-stranded cord in her life, which was God's word, worship music, and praying parents.
Right.
So,
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, it's just one of those things that, when you're young, you tend to model what you see, right? So the cool kids at school, everybody loves them, everybody's drawn to them, so then you kind of want to be like that person. But when you start growing up, if you start to see your parents like dealing with some serious issues and serious obstacles, and it's like prayer and God becomes real and there's a relationship and they hear you pray, and instead of God, like it's sounding like he's so far away, but he's so close, and they see that intimacy, it's going to have an impact. It's going to have an effect on
absolutely.
them.
And even as adults, I think about it, people are always watching us. They're watching you. They're watching your countenance. They're watching how you react to situations. They want to see if what you're saying is real.
Exactly.
If this is just a religious thing or is it
Exactly
real?
right.
So a lot of your Christianity is being caught by people.
That's right.
Not so much what you're teaching or preaching to them, but they're watching your lives because it's real. It has to be real.
Yeah, or else no one's going to catch it. And I think the thing is, as pastors, sometimes we get asked, I don't understand why I'm going through this. Hey, you know what? We go through things too. We don't understand why we went through it. But, I always tell Sharon, it's a test of the emergency broadcast system. If this had been a real emergency, you'd have been told where to tune into. God allows these things into our lives so that they can work together for our good. you don't know how much you can take until you actually take it. Until you're actually in that situation, you can say, you can hypothesize, you can do all these other things, but until you're actually there, facing that challenge, facing those obstacles, and looking at those giants face to face, like David did, you won't really know until you get there. And so God allows you to get into those situations to see, hey, you know what? I'm not as strong as I thought I was in this area. And if you're like, wow, I can't believe I just handled that well. That's all it's all about. It's all about growing.
Absolutely.
And for God, the more God is real in your life, the better you are going to be at handling those tough situations and being able, people are going to see like, wow, how did you manage to do that? And it opens up the door.
Absolutely. Well, Sally's setting up. We have our third and final segment for today. And this is just a really short one. It's just a 2-minute segment. And they're wrapping up talking about the importance of community in their lives. So.
Talk to us a little bit about community, church community, friends who've stood with you, continue to stand with you. How's that played a role in you guys' life? And specifically, maybe how did those values that you've picked up along the way through community, through church life, have sustained you now that the pressures are probably a little more than they used to be?
I think in the beginning, just from the very beginning when we got married, we decided, hey, we need a group of people to surround ourselves with. I think even when it got harder, 6, 7, 8 years into marriage, when things were a little tougher with our business, it's easier to become an island almost and say, okay, you know what, I don't want to show up. I don't have the energy for it. I don't have anything to give. But even in those times, I remember thinking, we got to go. We got to show up. Being an island is such a dangerous place. And there are many times when it would have just been easier for us. But even in the beginning, one of the things that I just love the most just about the sense of community and the gift it was to us was just when we were first getting married, we had first started renovating our home and opening up our business, Magnolia. And the night before we opened, James, Mark, and Maria were actually our life group leaders at the time. And they had said, hey, can we worship and pray before you open your business? And, in my mind, I'm freaking out. I'm thinking no one's going to show up when I open up those doors the next day. And what did I even get myself into? But they went into that little shop on Bosque, and I just remember the sweetest time that I still think of often, which was just praying and worshiping. And I remember there were so many words spoken that night over our business that really set it apart. It was no longer Chip and Jo are doing a business. It was, this is God's thing. Magnolia is God's. And when I started hearing these words that people were speaking over the company that wasn't even born yet, I realized, hey, God's going to take this somewhere. And even then, I kind of doubted it, like, you don't know. But those words that were spoken are now what we're seeing today, and just thankful for that community. And even now in this time where it's just, there's a lot going on, lots of exciting stuff, but with that comes a lot of weight, a lot of pressure. Yeah. We couldn't do this without our community. We could not do it without that quick text of, pray for me right now, I'm going in this meeting. That kind of debriefing we get every week is very valuable for us as a couple and a family.
Awesome.
That's great.
Absolutely.
So what were your impressions? I mean, that was a lot of
Just
but that was a lot of meat in that. Yeah.
She said an awful lot in 2 minutes.
Yeah,
and I
she
think
did.
what I gleaned out of that is that she made a great statement on being an island is a dangerous place. And the danger of isolation. We live in a society, a culture right now that's increasingly isolated. We live by texts, we live by emails. People are less and less connected.
That's right.
So, and that's even in church. We kind of think, well, I can do this spiritual stuff on my own. I don't need church. We encounter that with people all the time.
Yes,
I do my virtual church. I turn on the TV or I turn on my iPad, and I can click here and I can click there, and we get disconnected. And so I thought that was such a point. There's no substitute for community, for people standing side to side with you.
That's right.
In your walk.
That's right. I think that one of the things that, I can say that because I'm a pastor, is, just through life experience, and Sharon and I have talked about this, is, you can't give people what you don't have, right? I mean, if we get up there and we start preaching about a God of love, a God of compassion, a God of grace, and the power of the cross, and we are not living it ourselves, then it's just hollow words. Right. We've had people that have followed our ministry from the beginning, and although we're still small, we have a huge impact globally because we've been very transparent about our trials and our tribulations. We don't hide our battle scars. You know what I mean? If I tell you to dream another dream or to hope or do all these other things, and I'm not putting that in the context of darkness, right? How a light shines brighter in the darkness than it does among other lights. So when you go through difficulties, those are those dark places. Like David said, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? Because he knew God was his shepherd. He knew God was not going to leave him and that God loved him. So we've been privileged to live out some pretty embarrassing moments and some difficult moments and some scary moments, life and death moments in front of people. And they've been like, wow, how did you get through that? How are you able to still stand with everything that you're going through? And we just open up our hearts and says, because we believe. We believe God is good. We don't think that the Bible is just a book full of a bunch of men's writings. We really do believe it is the Word of God, inspired by God, and it is real. And so when they see God being real to you, then all of a sudden they're like, well, let me go ahead and rethink what I used to think. And so the thing is that the church is, just like Cheryl Fournier said, church is the body of, it's a body. It's an organism, not an organization. And so if you think you're part of an organization, then you can go virtual and, do your podcast and your things like that. But if you see it as an organism, I mean, if the finger detaches itself from your hand and says, hey, I'm going to go off on my own, it's not going to survive very long. It's going to die. It's going to atrophy, grow gangrene, and it's going to die. And although we are spiritually not going to die, but when we're disconnected, we're not enjoying the fruits of what Jesus established in his body for us to receive the fullness and the benefits of everything he did for us on the cross is experienced and it's tasted and it's lived in community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's all for today, but good news is we're going to continue Chip and Joanna's journey in 2 weeks. We're going to finish off this interview where they talk more about love and marriage, their relationship with one another. They talk about establishing boundaries with time, and also what happens when our dreams are delayed. Delayed dreams. That's something we can all relate to.
Yeah.
So we're gonna finish off our Spotlight series with them in 2 weeks. That's, I believe, March 14th. Saturday, 11 a.m. Please join us to finish off our series with them.
And look at that. We still have 2.5 minutes left.
Oh, we still have 2.5.
You guys did great.
Thanks,
We did
Sally.
great. So
Thanks,
now
Sally.
I guess we hope we see you. Well, we won't see you. Hope you
You'll
see
see us.
In 2 weeks. We'll finish off with Chip and Joanna. They're such a great couple. And now I guess Sally will close out, and you'll enjoy Ken Peschel's wonderful song.
Yes, and we're going to
every
have
morning.
Ken
Yes.
soon at the end of March.
We're
I think it's,
excited about that.
Last
March
Saturday,
28th.
March 28th.
Ken and his wife,
wonderful wife April are going
April.
to be up here,
Up here
Skyping
live.
with us live. It's going to be awesome.
Yay. And I know a lot of your Govs Radio audience knows Ken. He's
Yeah.
like a friend of Govs Radio.
Yep,
And
definitely.
Sally loves him.
Yeah, I love him.
So he'll be here at the end of March.
Safe travels, Ken. I know you're not on live. You told me you guys had things to do today. So, all right. God bless.
God bless.
You are my God every morning. You are faithful, faithful. I am your child every morning. Help me be faithful, faithful. Every morning I will rise up and worship you. Every morning my praise to you, oh faithful and true. star.